What's up? It's Mike Mal, and you are listening to the Athletor Podcast, where we dive into the processes, mindsets, strategies of some of the most successful athletes and coaches from all walks of life. Hi, what's up? It's Mike. You're listening to the Athletor Podcast. This week's episode is Sage Mortimer. She's U23 World Champion this year. She wound up in the semifinals having a really interesting match with the Japanese girl. She literally got teched and pinned the girl all at the same time. We run through that match. We also talk a little bit about some of the things that was lacking in Sage's training over the last couple of years and how she kind of turned things around, wound up winning a world title because of it. We also talk a little bit about 2028 and what the next cycle for Sage Mortimer looks like. All that and more coming up on the podcast, Athletor Podcast. See ya. Athletor Podcast, Sage Mortimer. How are you, kid? How's everything going?
I'm great. How are you? It's going good out here.
Oh, good. I can't complain at all. Thank you so much for jumping on the podcast. I got a lot to talk to you about, young lady, but let's start here. Congratulations on a U23 world title.
Thank you.
You did it in pretty impressive fashion. You got teched and still won. How does that work out?
That's my style, you know?
That's it. I was totally in the game plan.
Yep.
No, but look, here for anyone that didn't see it, let's run through the match kind of piece by piece, if you don't mind. She came out, and it looked like you were a little bit stunned at her pace. Am I right in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. She's like an insane competitor, Japanese. She put the pace on. She was really quick and had really good technique. And yeah, I was stunned is the right word for sure.
You go down by 6 early. You do get a takedown though. Mm-hmm. You were trying to rip her arm off. And you should have, right? I mean, going back on that, how much of that do you think you could have got her over? Because like, here's the thing with me, like, I'm starting to train more women now, and I almost deter them from throwing half Nelsons because women's shoulders are just too flexible. Like, yeah. It's like too hard to do, right?
Yeah, I run into that problem a lot in the women's side.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about that. Like, did you kind of know she wasn't going to go over, or were you really trying to crank on her?
I mean, I was just trying to get the takedown. I was in that Iranian position, the throw by position, and I've trained that like all year. So I was just trying to get the takedown there. But yeah, I knew I was going to have to do something big in that match because she's a tough competitor for sure. And yeah, I think she was definitely favored to win that bracket.
Yeah, for sure. You did pull something out of your behind though. It wound up pretty good, right? You know, she takes you over on like a Navy ride type of thing, and you roll over on top of her, and she let her foot off the gas. I'll be completely honest with you. She gave up. She stopped for a second, and she lost because of it. Did you feel her kind of let up a little bit?
I mean, I could tell that I was not going to let her off her back at that time. Like, I was just so determined that I did not care what was going to happen. I was not going to let her off her back, but it was like super stressful and scary and exciting moment. That was few moments right there when I realized I got her on her back, and I was just like so excited and thinking like, I am not letting her off her back, like pin. So yeah, it was really exciting, and yeah, she definitely made a mistake, and I capitalized on it, and yeah, I do well with that.
That's good. Moving forward, did you have a good idea you were going to win in the finals?
Yes, I was not about to lose after winning in the semis against such a tough competitor. There was no way I was going to lose.
Hey, don't go anywhere. It's Mike. We'll get back to the podcast in just a second. We got to pay the bills though. Do you have an athlete that's looking to break into the social media space? We at AthletorLive.com have a brand new in-depth tutorial done by none other than Caden Henshaw. If you don't know who Caden is, he's not even a Division I wrestler, yet he's got hundreds of thousands of engaged followers. Learn how to create engaging content, grow your followers, and open up new opportunities in the NIL space. Go to AthletorLive.com/Caden and we'll give you the first module completely free.
Yeah. What are you telling yourself when you're down by 6 to a multiple-time age group world champion? Because look, a lot of girls would have laid down. Let's be honest about it, right? Like a lot of girls would have just kind of laid down and well, I know I'm getting into medal matches, so whatever. But you obviously didn't say that yourself. What were you thinking down by 6 there early?
I mean, it's the same. It's like the exact same mindset. It's like the scoreboard doesn't really affect me like at all, like during the match. So it's just nothing changes. I'm still just going out there and trying to open up to my attacks, and so really nothing changes. I'm not thinking like, oh, I'm down, I'm losing, I gotta go. Nothing changes. I just keep the same exact mindset.
It seems like that is something that has been instilled in your head from a young age. Where does that come from?
I know. I've been wondering where this comes from. I do think that part of it is like I was born with that, like stubbornness and competitiveness. And then part of it is like my club coach, he was always teaching us like we were always doing like mental exercises like deep breathing and meditation like after practices before a big tournament. So I'm not sure. I think it's a little bit of both, but I've always wondered where that comes from.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, man. Because I bet you're right. I bet you it's probably 50-50, but it does have to be trained, right? It does have to be, somebody has to put that in your head to
Oh,
begin
for
with.
sure. Yeah.
Do you find yourself continuing on the kind of training the mental aspect of the sport, even now that you're up at college?
Yeah, I think that when I was at my last school, it was a couple years of where I saw myself like I didn't know where like that mental trait that I have. I didn't know where it went. Like I lost it for a couple years and I was like, this is really weird. Like, I'm still tough. I'm still having like okay, like medium success and obviously not the results I wanted, but I lost that and I couldn't figure out how to get it back. And then finally I had to like dig deeper and make some changes in my training and then I got it back. I don't know. It's just like some sort of mental mindset that I I naturally have.
Yeah, but how did you get it back? Because like we hear about that, like I like baseball, right? So you hear baseball players going through a funk of like a couple weeks or a couple months. How do you pull yourself out of I don't want to call it a funk because you were still having some success, but how do you go from where you were mentally to winning a world title against a multiple time world champion?
I think I would say like I changed how I view my training and I changed coaches, but that doesn't have to do with the mentality side. I just changed how I view my training and what I want to do with the sport. And I think with that I found like another level of love and respect for the sport and that really helped me to like find that mental side again.
So what was the problem area? Meaning, how were you approaching your training in those 2 years you were in a funk, and how did you change that? What did you change it to?
So I think that I would say that my approach to training was like I'm going to be the hardest worker in the room and I'm going to be the toughest in the room, but I was never going out of my way. I wouldn't say never, but I wasn't often enough going out of my way to get better in the areas I'm not good at, right? So I'm naturally a competitor, I'm naturally really tough, but I'm not naturally gifted in uh I don't naturally have a lot of technique
Mm.
still. But so that was where like I really needed to take some responsibility in myself to get better in the technique areas, like my defense and my shots, right? So that's where I needed to go out and find like a coach who can get me to those who can teach me that technique that I'm missing. And that was like a self accountability thing where I had to switch from, I can be tough in the room, and I can be a competitor, but at the end of the day, like my technique needs to get better if I want to be a world champion, Olympian, all these things.
Interesting. So it wasn't so much even a mental hurdle as much as it was like, hey, I got to start paying attention to detail in terms of technique. Is that about right?
Yeah.
That's interesting, because you don't see many, for lack of a better term, kids, 19, 20-year-old athletes that have the wherewithal to stare that in the face, dude. That's kind of a hard decision to make on your own, huh?
Yeah, I think that's something. It's like I'm not afraid to say that my technique isn't very good. Like, because I know my strengths. My strengths are like I'm a competitor and I'm tough, and I'm gonna figure out a way to win. But I know my weaknesses, and I'm always like wanting to get better on the technique side. And I'm not afraid to say that like my technique was not there. So
That's
it,
interesting.
yeah.
Hey, can we go backwards? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. Yeah.
So can we go backwards here? How did you come up through this sport? Let's get the origin story, because we started at the World Championships, but I've known you since you were a baby, right? Like, so tell everyone how you came up through this sport.
Okay, so my older brother wrestled, and my dad was his coach at the local club, and I think that they would play like sharks and minnows, and I'd be there every day, competitive, and I was just on the sidelines, and I couldn't play the games. And then I also was really competitive with my older brother. Um like I always wanted, like I tried to learn how to read before him, and we were always just so competitive growing up. So then I was like, I would see him like not have success in wrestling or like lose a match, and I'm like, I could beat that guy, like get me in there. So I think it took me a year or so to convince my parents to let me wrestle. But then ever since then, I was like super talented. I found success like right away, and I just fell in love with the sport immediately. And then I obviously in Utah, there was no girl wrestlers. So I would wrestle boys all throughout my until college. I wrestled boys.
That's I think you're glossing over a couple of things. Maybe placing in the national tournament with boys. I mean, there's I mean, look, first person I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but the first person I've ever heard of that female that placed in Greco at Fargo. What was that like? I mean, I'm sure for you it was kind of just another day in the office, right? But you got to know that was kind of a big deal, huh?
Yeah, I mean, at the time when I remember my mom, she was signing me up for Fargo, and she was like, there's no girls Greco. And I was like, oh, well, okay. So sign me up in the boys division. And she's like, well, the cadets go at the same time as you. And I was a cadet at the time. And I was like, okay, sign me up in the juniors, like, because Greco was my favorite. And so, so I signed up in the juniors division. I had to make weight like an hour after my finals match in the women's division. And then the next day I wrestled in All American. But like that part wasn't even a big deal to me because I was so accustomed to wrestling guys. So at the time I was just like, well, yeah, like I should have done better. Like, what do you mean? And so, but at now I like realize how great of a accomplishment that is. So
Pretty cool stuff. Like, but again, like, so I don't know if you're even still grasping the gravity of it, because something tells me that there's a bunch of I know that there are a bunch of coaches across the country going, Sage Mortimer did it, you can do it, right? So how does that
kind of weigh on you, or does it? Does it even affect you?
I would say like I would say maybe it's just kind of like something I did, and I'm proud of myself, but I wouldn't say it really affects me. I would like I maybe it gives me confidence, and like I like to look back on my accomplishments, and like that fuels me for the future. But yeah, I don't know. It's not really. I know it's awesome, but
Not
it's
really a
like
thing, huh?
yeah, not really a thing.
Okie dokie, if you say so. Let's talk about wrestling in college now. What, in your experience, is something that is starkly different from, aside from the fact that you're wrestling girls now, what is starkly different from wrestling in high school to wrestling in college for women? Because we talk to dudes on this podcast all the time, and a lot of them are just like, man, the level of the room goes way up, and this and that. But I have a feeling that the experience of college wrestling might be just a little bit more different for women when they get to college. Is there anything that kind of surprised you when you moved into the college ranks?
Yeah, I was on a high school the boys team in high school, so definitely switching to women in college. I was surprised at like how strong they were. I was not ready for that. And they have like completely different strengths, like their grip strength or like their defense, like their hip strength. It's like they're just as strong because I was wrestling high school boys, and then going to women, they're just as strong, but just in different areas. So that was like such a learning curve for me to be able um, to wrestle women, going from boys to women, and then also just so like how it's like all day, every day. That is like a big deal. To me, it's like it's got to be like your lifestyle training instead of just something that you do.
Mm. What was a typical week of training like when you were in high school as opposed to now?
In high school, it was just I would just practice every day after school, with my high school team, and then it was folk style, but I would mainly focus on like cutting them or coming like choosing neutral because I knew I would be freestyle. But now it's like it's just like an all day everyday thing. Like I'm trying to get one-on-ones. I have lifts, I have I have practice in the afternoons, and it's completely different. Like my training back then was like nowhere near where it needed to be, and now I would say like it's a lot more dialed in.
How would you change, if you could go back in time? How would you have changed what you did in high school to prepare yourself for where you're at now?
I would definitely have some better self accountability, because the same thing, like once I figured that out, like wrestling became a lot easier. Um, but yeah, I definitely didn't have the self accountability. I was just going to like one practice a day. I wasn't doing anything extra. And that was like a big difference that I had to make and realize. And I definitely would have had a lot more success. I was lucky enough to have a lot of success just because I'm talented and I grew up wrestling boys, and so I didn't really have to make that like make that change until later. So I kind of got away with it for a long time. But if I could go back, I would do like private lessons with coaches and like get those extra workouts in and hit the weight room a lot more and be watching a lot more film and get my technique a lot better.
How much film are you watching now?
I would say I watch like maybe like 3 times a week. Still not enough.
No, that's still pretty good. Who are you watching now?
I really like Yazdani, Aaron Pico. I do a lot of Amit's underhook series, so I watch how she finishes that because that's always a position I'm getting into. And it's having a lot of success right now on the women's side in freestyle and college.
Yeah, oh, for sure. It is a
Yeah.
cheat code. It
Mhm.
is a cheat. Like I have this one athlete who did not have very much success last year, and that is putting it ever so politely. But I'm like, okay, you're not fast, you're not all that strong. you better get an underhook. You better get it quick.
Yeah.
You know, and it's completely like 180 her entire wrestling career. And I say that not because I even care that much if she wins wrestling matches, but now she loves wrestling. Like she's really into it, dude. Like she all right, I'm an underhook girl, and she digs in an underhook and she will push that girl to the line. And if the girl pushes back, she snaps down. And it is very, very simple. And you watch Amit. Now, Amit is a phenomenal athlete. But it's not exactly groundbreaking stuff. It's 2-on-1s and it's underhooks. What's interesting to me is like how much success you can have on the female side of things with just a good old control tie. So is that where you're putting most of your emphasis right now?
In control tie?
Yeah.
So I would say that my like where I dominate the most is from ties, and I'm really good at controlling and hand fighting. So what I've actually started working on now is changing pressure, and like instead of moving forward the whole time, like being able to move back and get into my things,
Mm.
and utilize fakes and work from space and work both sides of my collar tie, both sides underhook, and work different control ties just because I can dominate any match from an underhook, and everyone knows an underhook's coming from me. And I also, from a collar tie, I won the world championships with a collar tie, basically. Like,
Mm.
so I'm trying to work on like all these different ties, and I love like seeing like how many different ways I can get to my shots, and I love figuring out the hand fight. That's like definitely my favorite thing, is the hand fight. So putting those together and then figuring out how to also finish shots, because that's something else that I struggle at.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. You say figuring out the hand fight. What does that look like for someone that's learning the way that you are? Like it looks like your aptitude to learn over the last couple of years has really jumped up. So my question is, what's the process like? Do you bring this to your coach and do you just drill the heck out of it, or do you wrestle it live, or do you throw in some type of sparring? What does the actual process look like for getting better in those ties and pressure situations?
Yeah, so I've always been really good at like picking up on stuff really quickly if I know that it's something that like I want to do, or I can do. So like I'll just be watching film, or I'll be on like Instagram and I'll see something, and then if I like it, I'll send it to my coach, and I'll be like, "Hey, can we put this in the arsenal tomorrow?" And then the next day he's like, "Yeah, sure, like that'll fit right in." And then he'll just show me like, "Okay, you can get to this from this tie, and then that'll lead right into this." And then so my coach Short, is like super talented in individualizing wrestling and individualizing my style, and adding in things to like what's going to work for me specifically. And that's why like
Mm.
he's phenomenal at that. And he's really good at like connecting the dots for me, because I know I can do like I can do a snap down double leg, right? But like he knows how to add like 15 more pieces into that so that I can get to it every time. And it's like it's just so exciting. And then I do I'll spar it, and I'll do it live in practice. And I don't rep it a lot of times. I think if I see it and if I get it down, I kind of have it down. And then I'll do it live in
Mm.
practice until I can get it live.
So when you're wrestling live in practice, do you put that competitive streak away? Because let's be honest, right? Like if you're trying something new, if you're focused on trying something new, it's really hard to be super competitive about every single situation. Like you have to kind of concede in certain situations so that you can just focus on the thing that you need to learn better. Do you have to put some of your that competitiveness away when you're learning these new techniques?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I'm not afraid at all to get taken down at practice or scored on at practice. That's not a worry of mine. And I know it's like the wrestling room and my teammates, like it's a safe space where it doesn't have to be head to head all day, every day. Like we know we're all out here getting better. My coach said today, he stopped us during live and he said, like, let's work on stuff, like work on things you're not good at, try new things. And, I'm always doing that, and I'm always trying to get into ties I'm uncomfortable in and positions I'm uncomfortable in. And if I shoot a shot, I know my shots aren't the best. I'm not the best at finishing right now, but I know if I get into a horrible shot, like, I'm just going to give it up and let them get the go behind. And so, yeah, I have the competitiveness to try new things, but I don't care if my teammates score on me. Like, we all know we're just getting better.
Yeah, but that's easier said than done sometimes. Like I know competitive people, and it's hard to put that away sometimes, no?
Yeah, sometimes there's I've been in rooms where the girls just have egos, and it's like no one's getting better because we're just wrestling to win every day. We're wrestling to win practice. Like, what's the point of that? So it's like you go head to head with them, and it's fun to scrap for sure. I like going head to head, but at the end of the day, I need to get better at technique, and I'm already talented at being a competitor, so I need to get better at technique. So I'm gonna put that away and just work on stuff I'm uncomfortable in.
What are you doing defensively now that is what are you working on defensively to get better right now? So we talked about the offense quite a bit, but some of these Japanese girls, they're so good offensively that collectively we got to get better as a country because we're not there yet.
Yeah, I think that my wrestling style is so offensive that before I did not care if I got scored on, that I would let the score go up 22-20. Like, I had no defense because I knew I was going to go back and score. So I think like my defense has gotten like 10 times better uh since changing coaches. And because before I seriously think I had no defense, and I would just do like crotch throws or something. So now it's like I'm starting from baseline and just trying to get any defense, and then I can work on getting actually good at defense.
Was that difficult to like go back to like, all right, you got to get your hips down, got to get your head up? Like, was it difficult, like a mindset to get into?
Oh yeah, for sure. I would have like individual practices where I'd be getting so frustrated that, like, first of all, it's boring to drill defense,
It
and I
is.
think that's why a lot of people aren't good at it. It's boring, and then second of all, like, I am not good at it, and so I get really frustrated, especially when my partner is like the 125 pounder on the men's team. Obviously, he's gonna get it every time on me if he wants to. So, yeah, and you just have to focus on doing baseline instead. I would always like whizzer down and kick away, so I had to really focus on being in good position, and my defense has gotten a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. There are certain things that I actually like better about training women, and one of them is while it's difficult to get through to them sometimes, once you do, and the women decide that they're going to get better at this specific thing, man, they really do it to nauseum, like almost to the point where, I always say like the guys will drill it till they think they got it right. The girls will drill it until you tell them to stop. Like they just don't stop. Is that the type of approach that you took with getting your defense better?
Yeah, I think that like women are a lot more like perfectionists, and that's what I've noticed like in wrestling with being in both worlds. Women are definitely perfectionists, and it's really cool to see. Um, like once they like are determined to do something, like that's what they're gonna do, and it's really cool to see. But yeah, I just like I changed my mindset to, I'm a blank canvas, and I'm going to get better at this. And it's, you drop your ego. Like, it's okay if you get scored on when you're working on defense. It's really frustrating, but yeah, you're going to focus on, like, I'm going to focus on doing baseline defense instead of, trying to do all this funky stuff and getting scored on against these, higher level athletes. So yeah, I think it's just like that mindset switch.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, go ahead.
How do you find that balance when you're maybe working on something new and obviously really good in kind of your previous technique or your previous strategy or how you approach a specific position. How do you find that balance once you get into competition of, I want to be really baseline, I want to, be really fundamental with my baseline defense, but, still, you want to win.
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely been thinking about this because this is the first like college season I've had. Last year I was wrestling at only like Bill Farrell, US Open, Olympic trials, right? So now I have some college tournaments where it's like it's not so serious, but I still, I'm not gonna lose, you know. So it's like I I guess I'll like it kind of depends on like where it is in the bracket or like how I'm doing in the match. If it's just some scrub, I'm gonna just try new things, and if I get scored on, I don't care. But then if it's like I need to make a point in this match, then I'm gonna go back to what I'm good at, underhooks, collar tie, maybe try a new thing here and there. But like if that's not working, I'm gonna score on you on the things that I'm like really good at. So
Interesting. All right, let's move kind of forward here into the future. 50 kilos was dominated by Yui Sasaki for a while, and now Sarah wins the Olympic gold medal this past year. So you have an uphill battle going into 28 and a gold medal. What does that now? First of all, are you planning on staying around 50 kilos?
yeah, for sure.
You feel good at that weight?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That is, it's arguable, right? It's arguable, but Yui Sasaki, up until very recently, was probably considered one of the best pound for pound wrestlers in the world. Men's, women's, freestyle, Greco, you call it whatever you want. That young lady was really, really good. How much of that do you take in? Like, does it even enter your brain at all, the fact that one of the best pound for pound wrestlers in the world happens to be in my weight class?
Yeah, I think like I've like watched film on her a little bit here and there, but I don't take it too seriously because I know at the end of the day that, like, not to sound too cocky or anything, but I know that I'm me and anything can happen in the match. Like it doesn't matter like who's in front of me on the line. Like I believe in myself. So I don't really focus too much on my competition. And I know Umi Ito, the girl I had in the semifinals, she competes just fine with Yui and I beat her. So, and I have 4 years to go where, right now I know I'm going to get like exponentially better from here. So I'm super excited for that.
Yeah. 4 years is a good amount of time to make some jumps. What does your timeline look like? I mean, I can't imagine that you're just going to want to make the team in 28. Like, what does it look like 25, 26, and 27 as far as Sage Mortimer goes?
I think I'm gonna stay here and train with my coach that I have right now, and like I'll maybe be an assistant coach here and train here, and then I might travel to like the OTC, the RTC, go to those training camps. But yeah, I definitely want to stay with my coach right now, and he said he's committed to staying in coaching until I get to the Olympics. So as far as that goes, that's pretty. I'll just stay with him, and we're like that. We're dedicated to getting there. So it's super exciting, honestly.
Yeah, no, it is, especially considering that it's in LA this next cycle. So it's pretty cool. All right, Joel Shaw, before we get moving here on these sprints, anything else for Sage Mortimer? No, let's take it on home. All right, young lady, here's the deal. You don't get to think about these questions. You just got to fire out an answer as quickly as possible.
Oh, no.
You ready?
Oh, no.
How come everyone says, oh, no?
I don't do well in this area.
Oh, well, you'll be fine. All right. What's the best wrestling shoe of all time?
Nike Inflicts.
All right. We got one
I
more
don't know.
for
That's
you,
my
Inflicts.
go-to every time.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. That's a solid
She's
show.
a
It's
solid.
one of my favorite. Yeah, no,
classic.
you can't go wrong. Yeah, you can't go wrong. All right. You only get 4. They got to be American. Who is on your Mount Rushmore of wrestling?
Aaron Pico, Amit Allure, David Taylor, Sage Mortimer.
Nice. Put yourself on the stone. I like it. Okay, last one. And this one has a lot of gravity to it. If you could change one thing, you had a magic wand, you could change one thing about the sport of wrestling, what would it be?
To bridge the gap between the men and women, like just the vibes.
What do you mean? What? I don't know what you mean.
I think that growing up from Utah, that it's like Utah was a lot more like less developed in my time, so I had to deal with a lot of adversity, and I still deal with a lot of adversity with being a female, and it's really hard to kind of like be in the room with men and not like stand out, right? Like I'm here to train just like you guys are. I'm not, and like not stand out or not look like a distraction, I guess, or like it just have the same like equal respect, I guess, you know.
Do you find that that's more that the equality of training, equality of respect, equality of for women in wrestling is more common in the rest of the country, or is it across the country that you see that there's a big divide?
I thought it was a Utah thing, but maybe I've heard of like other girls having this like similar experiences, so I'm not sure. But I was thinking mostly it was because I grew up in Utah where there was like no one, and I was like one of the first having to, you know, pave the way. So I've had to deal with a lot of that where some other girls my age wouldn't have to deal with that. But yeah.
I can tell you right now that in California, there is no difference between our girls team and our boys team. Zero.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like the expectation is the exact same, and we're reaping benefits because of it. I think, you know, like I think there's 14 weight classes on a female high school wrestling team. I think we had 7 represented at the state tournament last year. We took 3rd place, and you know what I mean. So it's like I don't give a rip which team you're wrestling for. The expectation is exactly the same, and I
that's awesome.
I don't know if it's like that around the country. I genuinely don't. But I think it will be real soon if it's not already. Because there's enough opportunity. Like how about this? The egos of most high school wrestling coaches are such that they want to win everything. and if there's something to win, they're going to try and win it. And I think that alone will change the kind of dynamics in a room instead of just, you know, having the girls be a afterthought.
Yeah, where it's like I just don't like, you don't want it to be like you're a girl in a man's sport. You just want it to be like it's also a girl sport, you know.
Yeah. I think it's getting there.
Yeah, it's getting there for sure.
I think it is. Yeah, especially now that we're seeing, you know, it's almost to the point where it's laughable now if a state doesn't have a female division for their state tournament. Like it's becoming like ridiculous at this point. No?
Yeah.
All right. Very good. Sage Mortimer, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and spending some time with us and giving us some insight. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was awesome. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Talk to you soon. Wait. Don't go anywhere before you hit that next button. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, do us a huge favor. Click that subscribe button. And if you're so inclined, leave a review and share it.
Mike now with the project. What you wanna know, man?